An interesting game for the Bulls tonight, kind of a whirlwind of emotions and a tale of two halves where the Bulls played as close to as perfect as a team can in the first half, tallying 76 points in the first alone, shooting an incredible 59% and 56% from three by halftime. They were moving the ball around well, getting everyone involved. I believe they finished the half with 19 assists, but they also were minimizing turnovers, like really just flawless team basketball. Yes, I know it's against the Pacers, so you kind of expect nothing less for the Bulls, a team that really needed to take care of business against a rebuilding or tanking team. But you honestly never know with the Bulls. They have been known to do well against good teams and then play down to their competition, which is kind of what happened in the second half. The Bulls got a little careless, started turning the ball over more. They had 11 turnovers in the second half alone. They weren't shooting the ball as well. Their shot selection wasn't what you saw in the first half. Guys were just forcing shots, thinking the game was already out of reach, and then the Pacers were also just lighting it up from downtown, and the Bulls' perimeter defense fell off a bit. Give the Pacers credit though, because it got to the point where the Bulls were actually hounding them on three, but they kept knocking down their shots. Buddy Hield went for an insane 7 for 12 from behind the arc. Yeah, he was a guy I wanted the Bulls to make a trade for in the offseason, but I also know salary-wise it probably was going to be hard to get done. But anyway, all of that led to the Pacers getting right back in the game after the Bulls were up by as many as 24 in the third quarter. They ended up cutting the lead all the way down to 4 points. And they really never went away until about a minute and a half left in the game. Yes, the Bulls always had a good cushion lead between 10 and 12 points or so, but with the way the Pacers were shooting the ball, you couldn't get too comfortable that the Bulls were going to walk away with this one with a win. But either way, the Bulls get the W, back-to-back wins. They're now 3-2 on the season. A lot of things to take away from this game, so let's talk about it. Now, as I mentioned, that first half of the Bulls was just great. And what I loved about it was the fact that, like in the second half of the game against the Celtics, the Bulls were pushing the pace, getting out quickly in transition, and moving the ball. I cannot tell you enough how important ball movement is for this Bulls team, rather than heavy ISO basketball like we saw a lot last season after Lonzo ball went down. And tonight, give a ton of credit to guys like Ayo and Dragic, who were maintaining that flow on offense, finding the open man, making plays in transition. They were both huge tonight from that perspective on offense. Dragic was a plus 19 on the night, hitting some big threes, finished the game with 13 points and 5 assists. This guy is proving me wrong, no question. I really thought signing him was a meh move, but he's really stepped up in a big way for this team thus far with his veteran leadership and high IQ, and has been able to make plays happen for the Bulls when they really need it, like we saw him do tonight in facilitating on key plays after the Pacers were going on that run in the third quarter. And then for Ayo, I mean, you watch this kid play, and you think he's a veteran out there with the way he carries himself and also doesn't shy away in the clutch. He had 2 big buckets in the fourth to keep the Bulls in a double-digit lead, and I can't emphasize enough how well he's been stepping up thus far while Lonzo Ball is out. Dude is working himself into a nice contract in the NBA with the way that he's playing. Tonight, 12 points, 7 assists, 4 rebounds, 2 steals, and a block, and only 1 turnover. Continues to improve on that turnover to assist ratio. And then guys, how about Patrick Williams tonight? I mean, he didn't have a crazy game or anything, but it's the best game that he's had so far this season. Was actually being active on offense, more agile on defense. Still a lot of improvement, obviously, but in 15 minutes, he scored 10 points on 4 for 5 shooting, hit a couple threes, and he finally got his first assist of the season, finishing with 2 assists along with 2 steals. I'm just hoping it's small, little wins like this for Patrick that can boost his confidence and continue to ride on that momentum going forward. You know what was also great tonight was the fact that we didn't really have to rely on DeMar so much on offense, and he didn't even have to force shots because guys were doing their thing with everyone contributing. Like DeMar could have easily just taken over, drawn up ISO plays for himself to get to that 20,000 point mark that he's so close to. But when the Bulls put up 76 points by halftime, he'd only taken a handful of shots and was deferring to other guys. Still finished the game with 17 points, 6 assists on 6 for 14 shooting, but I liked it because I would always much prefer to see balanced scoring from the team rather than just Zach and DeMar going off. Although Zach did go off tonight, especially in the early going, man was on fire tonight shooting from deep. In fact, all of his field goals were threes tonight, 6 for 8 from behind the arc. He was aggressive in getting to the basket as well and drawing contact, pulling a trick out of DeMar's handbook and getting to the foul line often. Finished the game with 28 points, 6 rebounds, and 5 assists. He was getting it done all over the court. I will say, Zach has low-key become an underrated passer. Like, he can be a really good playmaker when he wants to be. Some of those passes and lobs he was making in transition were a thing of beauty. Guys didn't always connect on them, which was unfortunate because then he doesn't get the assist for it, but I've really been enjoying seeing that side of Zach where he's getting guys involved and making plays happen for others rather than just creating shots for himself. Vucevic was also decent tonight, although he did have some trouble in the paint going up against Turner, but then again, a lot of centers do because he's such a great shot blocker. But I tweeted this during the game, you know, an aggressive and confident Vucevic can do wonders for the Bulls if he continues playing like that all season. Everyone is talking about how the Bulls need Lonzo Ball to be that catalyst to move this team forward, which is true, don't get me wrong, but Vooch playing like his former all-star self would be such a massive win for the Bulls that would make them that much more competitive in the East. And then off of the bench, aside from Dragic, like I mentioned, Drummond and Caruso were so key tonight. I don't think people realize just how impactful it is to have a good backup five. Like, the Bulls didn't have that last season. Tony Bradley wasn't good. Simonovic only played in mop-up time. Bulls had to resort to having a guy like Derrick Jones Jr. play the 5, and then when we signed Tristan Thompson after the deadline, that was a disaster. Andre Drummond, for his flaws, and teams have been counting him out for a while now, the guy is still a solid big man, a man that can crash the boards. It's funny because before the game, he was asked about the Bulls' second unit, and he said, our second unit is essentially good enough to be in the starting lineup. I'm paraphrasing a bit there. And then he also went on to say that they have the best rebounder of this past century, meaning him, which we laugh at, but then when you actually look at the numbers, he has the highest rebounding rate than any other player in NBA history. And then even for rebounds per game, just looking at it from that perspective, he's top 10 all time. So he's not really wrong. He is an incredible rebounder, and you saw that tonight, where in just 17 minutes of play, he's able to snag 13 rebounds, 4 of which were offensive rebounds. Again, very key because the Bulls were one of the worst offensive rebounding teams last season, and he had 8 points and finished as a plus 16 in the night. I'll admit, I kind of criticized the Drummond signing. Thought that was a whatever move after all of these other teams were making big splashes in free agency, but based on his production and value that he brings to this team relative to his salary, yeah, this is now starting to look like an underrated signing. And then Caruso, just all over the place, doing his thing and deflecting passes, getting up in guys' faces, pestering the shooter, bringing the energy to the floor. That's what you want to see from Alex Caruso, because although it was there for the first couple of games, he still kind of struggled a bit. But tonight, he was huge for the Bulls in getting stops down the stretch. He finished the game with 8 points, 3 steals, 2 blocks, and 3 assists. Was also a plus 18 tonight. But anyway, all around, a great game, even though the Bulls kind of fumbled a bit in the third. They got their act together. They finally shot the ball well. Their 3-point shooting was the best it's been all season, going 16 for 30. They shot near 50% from the field. 34 assists in this game, that's a season high, and they were being active and aggressive on defense as well. So the Bulls are off tomorrow, where they travel to San Antonio to take on the Spurs, another game that they really need to win and taking care of business against rebuilding teams. I'll have a live chat for that game here on the channel, so be sure to join that if you would like, and as always, be sure to subscribe if you're a Bulls fan, as I do post daily Bulls content. Thanks again for tuning in, guys, and I'll catch you in the next one.